Okay, well, everybody, it's my pleasure to welcome you to ACRL 2021 Leadership class. I'm so excited that you're here. I'm, of course, President-elect of ACRL. I'm actually President. That transition happened a couple weeks ago, and I'm really excited about that. We, meaning all of the wonderful staff and current leaders and ACRL members, truly appreciate your commitment since we could not really accomplish what we do without your contribution and participation. So just a little housekeeping point. Throughout this presentation, we'll reference to useful websites. A companion document with links has been shared with you and is posted in the description of this recording. Okay, so we're just gonna get started even further. Are you ready? Okay, let's go. So here are the desired outcomes for today's presentation. First, we want all of you to understand ACRL as an association and division of ALA, so that you have a better understanding of how we work together. Second, we want you to understand the expectations for the 2020-2021 leadership class. Finally, and probably most importantly, we want you to know how to get things done in ACRL. While this session focused on some really parts of the nitty-gritty for working within ACRL, I want to take a moment to say how rewarding it's been to serve as the Vice President this past year. I've been able to influence the ACRL's plan for excellence. I continue to meet just really wonderful, passionate, and talented members from all academic library types. And I've truly enjoyed this role, even as we've experienced, and I'm sure many of you have, some of the changes at ALA. And of course, after this pandemic, we've all been dealing with the changes in higher education and our society. ACRL is such an important organization, necessary organization, I would say. I know as we face great uncertainty in our own environments, as I mentioned, a global pandemic, budget reductions, that's something we're dealing with at Wayne State, and navigating these changes in higher education to position academic and research libraries in the best position going forward. I think it's my great privilege and honor to facilitate how every passionate member elevates themselves and the profession through ACRL. I really, again, can't stress enough, I want to thank all of you for taking on these important leadership roles during this time. I assure you, we are going to meet this moment and lay a foundation for those that follow us because of our commitment to one another, our continued practice to stay positive, and colleagues, we are going to try to stay positive, and our shared responsibility for ACRL's continued excellence and exceptional service to our members. I look forward to working with all of you as ACRL President in the coming year. Now, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the expectations. You are an important part of ACRL's leadership team. In years past, leadership team met twice a year in a meeting called ACRL Leadership Council. This meeting was held in conjunction with the ALA Midwinter Meeting and ALA Annual Conference. In January 2020, ACRL held its first virtual Leadership Council meeting. It went really well, I thought, and as well, we also had a face-to-face Leadership Council networking breakfast in Philadelphia. This year, due to the cancellation of ALA Annual Conference, ACRL is planning to hold a virtual Leadership Council meeting and membership meeting later this summer. And it will be summer, but you have to watch because for the council updates, they'll be posted on the leaders listserv, which staff will go over later on in this presentation. The reason why we meet twice a year is to make sure ACRL achieves the mission through goals outlined in ACRL's plan for excellence. As a member of the Leadership Council, we need you to be the kind of leader who makes all of the members around you better, inspired, and engaged. I know you will lead great teams, and I believe Each one of us can accomplish more than we think we can. But there's a lot of information going to be shared with you today, so don't worry. You will never do this work alone, as even I rely on the wonderful and talented and creative ACRL staff. They're always here and present. I know it'll be gratifying, I think, when we look at the work accomplishments we have, and those will be posted in ACRL's annual report, which will be published in December, in the December issue of CNRL News. And so that takes me to the next slide, which will take a quick look at ACRL structure. Each and every ACRL leader is crucial to the profession and to the association. As leaders, you have an important role in helping ACRL advance the strategic plan. Please know I care deeply about the craft of leadership, and I believe an essential role in this craft requires you to recruit, encourage, mentor emerging leaders. This work truly sustains a membership organization like ACRL. The board of directors at the top there has general oversight and direction for the affairs of the association. It conducts all business pertaining to the association and has authority to make decisions and speak on behalf of the association. Division level committees are charged by the board to accomplish specific association business, advise the board, or advance the association's strategic goals. The vice president, president-elect, that's been me this last year, appoints member volunteers to serve on these committees. And I had an opportunity to talk to many of you, and I appreciate all of your service. ACRL's communities of practice, that is sections, interest groups, and discussion groups, offer specialized membership engagement opportunities. Communities of practice are approved by the board and have significant autonomy to determine their strategic goals and how best to accomplish them. Section vice chairs appoint member volunteers to serve on their committees. So I know this is kind of a lot of information. During this session, we hope there'll be some time at the end to answer all your questions. And the contact information for board and staff are contained in this presentation or found on the website. I encourage you to find and seek out the answers to your questions. Don't let this, I agree, this is a very important meeting, but don't let the answers elude you as you lead these very important committees. Now, even with all the uncertainty in our world, I'm super excited about working with all of you in the association, in this time, especially one that's so strategically minded. So. Now, we all want to be a part of work that's larger than ourselves, and that's why I think we join an organization like ACRL. And I'm confident that each one of you will find individual satisfaction, but this will lead to ACRL's success. Now, let's look at ACRL's strategic plan. It's also known as the Plan for Excellence. As the
blood of Jesus. Okay, what's going on here? All right. Where?
As the Higher Education Association for Libraries, we lead academic and research libraries and librarians to advance learning and transform scholarship by focusing on the Plan for Excellence. And you will see ACRL has 4 strategic goals: value of academic libraries, student learning, research and scholarly environment, and new roles in changing landscapes. ACRL also has a core commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, which I'll talk about some more in the next slides. Now, we do our work in these 4 areas by having specific objectives and carefully measuring our progress in each.
Okay.
Next slide.
Okay, this must be,
This is right. Okay. ACRL is dedicated to creating diverse and inclusive communities in the association and in academic.
I didn't read all that.
In the fall of 2018, the ACRL board approved a new core commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. You see it there, right there. It's kind of hard to read there. Or EDI, to be added to ACRL's plan for excellence. A link to this core commitment can be found in the presentation's companion documents. And I really encourage you to spend some time reading this core commitment, because really it should, EDI, the work of EDI should permeate all areas of the association. Now I'm going to say that again because I think that's really important. The goal of the core commitment is for EDI to permeate all areas of the association. ACRL is poised to best support equitable, inclusive, and diverse librarianship through this commitment. ACRL will acknowledge, as it states, and address historical racial inequities, challenge oppressive systems within academic libraries, value different ways of knowing,
I don't know why I did
identify
that.
and work to eliminate barriers to equitable services, spaces, resources, and scholarship. I am grateful to follow the leadership of ACRL past President Lauren Presley. Her program planning committee focused on EDI, and her efforts created an online EDI discussion series blog, which is now available as an ACRL LibGuide. I encourage you all to look at that. It's really outstanding work. In addition to the online discussion series, EDI President's Program were held at the 2019 ALA Annual Conference and the 2020 ALA Midwinter Meeting. At this year's virtual annual conference, I'm sure that most of you were there. ACRL's President Karen Monroe continued the EDI.
I don't know why I did that.
Her President's Program entitled Shifting the Center, Transforming Academic Libraries Through Generous Accountability was held on June 10th. And I know that's recorded, and there were over 600 people there, and I really encourage you to watch that. We've been doing work with Mackenzie Mack to think about how she might continue some of that work with our Leadership Council, which you'll hear more about. So in my role next year as president, I'm working with my planning committee to prepare a president's program focused on EDI topic at the 2020-2021 ALA annual conference in Chicago. Now, I'm particularly interested in this idea of exploring oppressive systems within our
I don't know
life,
why I did that.
or thinking about organizational cultures and barriers to leadership advancement within our academic and research libraries for Black, Brown, Indigenous people of color in our profession. I think we're on the next slide now. Thank you. Now, to support our commitment, core commitment, ACRL is also the home of the Diversity Alliance. I started this program with colleagues at West Virginia, and the Diversity Alliance's goal is really to increase the hiring pipeline of qualified and talented individuals from underrepresented racial and ethnic groups into academic and research libraries. And since its association with ACRL in 2017, the Diversity Alliance has provided a network for member institutions that commit to a 3-year diversity residency position for their libraries. Now, there are currently over 35 institutional members of the 2020 Diversity Alliance group, and ACRL is looking to grow the program and offer more benefits, and this is probably going to come through the work of the Diversity Alliance Task Force, which was approved by the board just in Philadelphia. So I'm excited to continue this work with the Diversity Alliance. Next slide. As President-elect, I have been working with the Appointments Committee to complete the 2020-2021 divisional level committee appointments. Sections are also completing their appointments. Interests and discussion groups follow as a separate process to appoint conveners. More on the whole entire appointments process for your group will be shared later on in this presentation. Last year, a board working group reviewed the appointments process to make it more inclusive. We wanted to actually see how are diverse individuals actually being put on committees. The appointments application process was updated to include more welcoming language on the ACRL volunteer form, the web page, and social media. Members who volunteered for a committee or section appointed had the option to answer several demographic questions. And I continued this practice on, and I think Julie is also going to continue this practice on in this next coming year. As ACRL compiles this data, I think we'll be able to share a summary when the majority of appointments have been completed this summer. ACRL will continue to include these optional demographic questions, as I mentioned, so it can better understand how to increase the diversity of appointments across the whole process and make it more inclusive. So next, we'll hear from ACRL Interim Executive Director, Cara MALENFANT.
Hi, John, thanks. And I just wanted to do a quick check-in on Mike's. I think my colleague Lois might have accidentally unmuted herself. And so I just wanted to alert her to let her know it's to double check and make sure she mutes again. Thanks. So I'm Cara MALENFANT, and I am the Interim Executive Director. I would encourage all of you to keep your eyes peeled. There should be a position posting and a job announcement in August, and for a permanent executive director. And who knows, maybe it will be one of you. So I'm also, like John, really appreciative of all of you being willing to step up and to lead the association and to really lead the profession, especially during a time like this. I know it's a big commitment, and these are times of huge uncertainty. And so, so thank you for being willing to step up and do this hard work. I wanted to talk with you a little bit about some of the policies and procedures and kind of the framework under which ACRL operates. So the structure of ALA as codified in the operating agreement is unique among American associations. ALA is one association, one legal entity with indivisible assets, a single set of uniform administrative, financial, and personnel policies and procedures. It is also the home for divisions like ACRL, which have their own strategic plans, separate boards of directors elected by division members, their own executive directors and staff, and responsibility for generating revenue to support the division staff and to carry out the programs for members. ACRL was the first division, founded in 1940, and it's the largest currently. We have many member groups to address all of your needs, sections, discussion groups, interest groups, as well as 44 separately incorporated chapters regionally. But again, in the eyes of the IRS, ALA is one organization. It's a 501c3, which means we're a charitable educational nonprofit organization for the public benefit. We're not classified as a professional association. So what does this mean? It places some limits on what we can do in terms of lobbying and political activity. And specifically, we are not allowed in the eyes of the IRS to have what's called political speech. That means no discussions supporting or opposing a particular candidate for office. And this is going to be important because 2020 is a federal election year. Also, we can't be organizing boycotts or restraint of trade, and no defamatory remarks about others. So I know sometimes people say, this is a free speech thing, you're limiting us. Actually, it is, it's a tax issue, and we wouldn't want for ACRL or any of its member groups to be the ones that put ALA in jeopardy and at risk of losing that. So if you're not sure at all about what you can or can't say, or you're like, ooh, is this political speech or not? Reach out, let me know. But let me give you a few examples of things you can do. So we can't take a position on a candidate. We can't endorse this candidate for office or that candidate for office. But ALA and ACRL can most certainly take positions on issues. And we do have paid staff in Washington, D.C. who do engage in lobbying. So there's a small amount of direct lobbying that can be allowed under IRS tax code. So we take issues all the time. For example, when the White House proposed to eliminate IMLS, we rallied all of you and said, you and your member groups and your patrons, we need people to talk about why libraries are important and why that funding matters. And yay, thanks to you all and your tireless advocacy, the fiscal year 20 IMLS budget had about $10 million more than the previous year. But this issue comes up again, and that's one example of many issues. There are other issues we take stances on all the time. Copyright legislation, deferred action for childhood arrivals. There are other issues about which ALA and ACRL speak out on. So please do take a look at what you can do to be an advocate. Be sure to sign up and get alerts from ALA's Legislative Action Center. And as another example of what ALA has been doing, we're responding to COVID-19 and have been talking to Congress a lot about lobbying for the needs of libraries and making sure that library funding is taken into consideration as some of these relief packages are crafted. And there was just under a week ago, I believe, a little more than a week ago, there was a new piece of legislation that came out. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at that yet or to weigh in and to ask your member of Congress to support that, I would encourage you to do so. Let's take just a minute to talk about this financial relationship between ACRL and ALA. As I said before, under the operating agreement, the ACRL budget and all division budgets must be self-sustaining. So that means we don't get any direct support from ALA. So it's not like your library that would receive an allocation from the university or college. ACRL must generate all of its own revenues. And we do that through membership dues, through registration for online webinars, for conferences, by selling books, subscriptions, those kinds of things, and through ad revenue, classified advertising. So those are our primary sources of revenue, and they cover all of the expenses of ACRL. All of the programs we offer, sponsorships cover things like awards, and it also covers all staff salaries and benefits. Additionally, divisions pay ALA an overhead. So we have an indirect cost that we pay back to ALA. For this year, it's 26.4%. So for every $1 of your ACRL conference registration, right off the top, 26.4 cents goes to ALA, and it covers things like IT, legal, HR, finance, accounting, the library. ALA has its own library. It also covers offices like ODLOS, Office of Diversity and Literacy Outreach Services, or the Intellectual Freedom Office. So the important thing to know right now at this moment in time is that ALA is reviewing its organizational effectiveness, and that there are a couple of working groups in progress. I'll mention them in a minute, but just rest assured that we as staff and the ACRL board are really keeping our eye on what's happening, because it could have implications for how we work in the future. All right, let me go into a little bit more detail about some of those changes that are happening at ALA. Next slide, please. So there are quite a few. First, there has been that impact of the pandemic. Just like it has affected all of you at your colleges, at your universities, and at your libraries, so too has it affected ALA and ACRL. Oh, sorry, back one, please. So one of the things we had to do, oh, sorry, Elois, I think backwards instead of forwards. You'll catch up, I'll keep talking. We had to cancel the face-to-face portion of the ALA annual conference and go virtual only. As many of you know, ALA had that happen, and there was some content that couldn't be absorbed. ALA couldn't offer all of those sessions, so ACRL put on a brief virtual event that was offered free of charge called ACRL Together Wherever. We also had to cancel the Rare Books and Manuscript Section Conference, as well as our immersion literacy information literacy immersion work and our traveling workshops.
Carol, hold on. Let me,
Sure.
because there are some issues going on, so I'm going to pause the recording.
Okay, thanks. We'll wait for Google Slides. Thanks. So another impact of this pandemic, in addition to us canceling our in-person events, is impact on us as staff. So as you can see, I am coming to you from my back porch. Elois is coming to you from her apartment, and we are working on laptops in odd, funny ways, in odd, funny places, just like all of you are. So we've seen that these changes, these decreases in our in-person offerings of professional development has affected our revenue streams, as have decreases in membership dues. Lots of folks don't have the funds to join right now, or their employers can't fund them. And we also see big decreases in our publication sales. So all of this means that ALA is having some financial strain right now, And one of the ways of trying to ameliorate this is to have staff furloughs. And I know that this is a thing many of you are facing. So I would just let you know that we as staff will be having 28 unpaid days of furlough between this August and next August, and to just be patient and be kind with us. It pains us to have to say, no, I can't do that, or I can't do that right now, or I'll have to put that off, but you're gonna hear that a little bit. So try to, as much as you can, give us some advance notice, and we wanna do everything we can to work with you, but I'd ask that just as you extend kindness to each other, and we'll extend kindness to you, that we can do that together as a group. So ALA is going to be reorganizing. There are a couple of new task forces that are carrying out Forward Together, which came out of the Steering Committee on Organization Effectiveness. And they delivered their final report in June. And there's now a task force, Forward Together, that's looking at implementing these recommended changes. Council recently approved that. Instead of a 1-year term, which was the recommendation, Council approved it for a 2-year term. And then there's another task force called Forward Together Fiscal Analysis Group, and they're looking at the financial implications of some of these changes and what it would mean for ALA. There's also work happening in the divisions. You've probably all heard about 3 existing division members voted to unite. And so Alex, Lita, and Lama are going through that process right now of forming one division called CORE, Leadership, Infrastructure, and Futures. And then ASGLA, the Association of Specialized Government and Cooperative Library Agencies, is dissolving effective September 1. And other groups within ALA are welcoming and receiving some of their member groups. And lastly, RUSA, the RUSA Futures Task Force, has just formed. They'll be looking at a course of action and making some recommendations for the future of RUSA in about a year from now. Another area of change in response to the pandemic, PLA and several other ALA units, including ACRL and some outside partners, developed a recent survey to better understand the current impact that the crisis is having on all of you, the library community, your operations, your programs, your services, your finances. And some of those reports are up online, and I want to let you know that we really look to that information to help us understand where we need to pivot to, what we need to be doing to meet the current needs of libraries right now in this very moment in time. Another change is that ALA sold its headquarters building, and we are just in the final stages of moving into our rented office space about a mile south of where we were, and have unpacked our offices but aren't yet reporting there on a regular basis. And ALA's headquarters building is just getting turned over to the new owners. You probably noticed some residual effects from this. Our website was up, our website was down, our blogs are up, our blogs have been down. Some of this has to do with just moving massive server farms and terabytes of information, and hackers finding their ways into things we didn't know they knew how to get into. So our IT staff is working tirelessly, and I do mean tirelessly, on 4th of July, in the evening, on the weekends. They are working and doing their darndest to get things back up and running in a stable way, and really testing things carefully before we put them up online, so we don't have that frustration of up, down, up, down. So we hope to have things fully up and operating again soon, but you may see a glitch here or there now and again. The 5th big change at ALA is that operating agreement that talks about how divisions and other units relate to the parent organization. And ALA recently approved an operating agreement working group with a fairly aggressive timeline to really look at that relationship. It's especially important for ACRL because we are a little different than other divisions in that we have a very strong publishing unit. We have 2 scholarly journals, a news magazine, publish about 14 books a year, and then we have Choice, which is an entirely separate unit in Middletown, Connecticut, but part of ACRL. So we'll really want to look carefully at what happens with that operating agreement. And the other change that's underway right now is around midwinter. So midwinter in Indianapolis is still on the books to be held, and we'll be expecting to hear more in the coming future if that should happen to change, if that needs to change. But for right now, it's still going forward. Assuming it does, it would be the last regular ALA midwinter. Starting in 2022, the renamed event will be more content focused and a lot fewer business meetings. So there wouldn't really be space for the board, our board, or sections or committees to meet. The ACRL board is going to stay apprised of the work of these and other groups and really stay active and give input whenever we can to make sure that the perspectives of academic librarians are reflected, and to make sure that your concerns are adequately reflected. I have a couple more slides. I think it looks like Elois has started to, computer went crazy on us again and started to auto advance. But let me go back to talk about external communication. Thanks. So as an ACRL leader, you may be asked to comment, to send a letter of support, or you might want your group, your committee, to take a stand on an issue. I want to make sure you understand that only the board of ACRL can speak for ACRL. And so we have a policy about this. So if you get a call from a reporter, you can comment as an individual, but not if you use your ACRL title. The board does respond promptly to requests from different units to take action. So in last year, the rare books and manuscript section requested that we, as an organization, that ACRL sign on to the protocols for Native American archival materials, and the board was happy to take that up and quickly voted yes. We also rely on you as members to bring us burning issues when they come up, and I'm going to pick on Charlotte Rowe for a minute. She's with the Research and Scholarly Environment Committee, but she and members of that committee really are aware of what's happening with open access legislation. They're really aware of when the White House has an open period of comment in the Office of Science and Technology Policy, and they bring that forth with their staff liaison and board liaison. They bring that forth to the board and say, here's what we think ACRL should do or say on this issue. So there are lots of ways that you can still be a leader on these topics and these issues, but bring it to the board. Informal communication is also super important, and we do have a liaisons assembly, the external liaisons assembly, which has all kinds of vetted and approved, appointed ACRL members going out and talking to higher education associations. And so there's a whole listing of those. There's a way you can apply to be one of those people. And we encourage you on your committees, if there are things you think you would like to help create to support these liaisons as they go out and do their work, if there's talking points. We've had other committees provide that kind of support, and we would welcome you to do that too. Another pertinent policy on questionnaires and surveys. SurveyMonkey makes it so easy to do your own survey, and I'm sure you all know that just because it's easy doesn't necessarily mean the survey is good or that it's really necessary. So please just take a quick check with us. Ask your staff liaison before you send out a survey. We want to review them and just give them a quick once over, again, to avoid that survey fatigue, to avoid duplication. We might know of something already happening by another group that would be really aligned with what you're planning to do. And then of course we can help ensure that you have the highest quality survey. And once it's approved, your staff member can help you get it out through all of our lists and through all of our communication channels in whatever way is most appropriate. Another important policy to know is that ACRL and ALA have the right of first refusal on the work you do within your membership group. So we are a publisher, we are an online learning provider, and we know that you have creative ideas, and we would like to be the first to consider how to publish your unit's work or how to offer a webinar on the topic. And you can see many, many examples of groups within ACRL who have done just that. We can help make it really easy to get all that done and connect out to the broader community. So when you volunteer for ACRL, you're serving on behalf of the profession, and we encourage you to check with ACRL content strategist Erin Nevius to propose a topic, and she can help you get it out to the broadest audience. So to some, ACRL can seem like a complex organization, and we do have many committees and communities of practice all working together towards that core purpose John talked about and towards those key goals in our strategic plan. But we really rely on you as an ACRL leader to do that work of helping connect this big picture work of the organization and of the board, and helping members of your group, your committee, feel connected and feel like they're contributing and that they also have that strong sense of purpose. We have a wonderful and diverse community, and there's many ways for people to get engaged, but we rely on you to help make those connections happen. We have a lot of tools to help you communicate, and you'll hear more about those later in the session. So from time to time, you may need to either keep up on what's happening with the board, or you may need to take something to the board. And let me talk a little bit about that. I already mentioned the example of the protocols for Native American materials, but here are a couple more reasons you might want to work with the board. The board approves new awards, changes to the award criteria. The board approves standards and guidelines developed by committees, by task forces, by communities of practice. The board also approves changes to division level committee charges and can create, renew, or dissolve section groups, interest groups, and discussion groups. Those kinds of groups could bring that to the board and ask them to take those kinds of actions. So if you want the board to take an action like that or anything else, there's a form we have that asks for a little context, a little background on the topic, and then what's the recommended action. And your staff liaison is happy to help you work that through, as well as your board liaison. We'll announce deadlines well in advance. We have meetings quarterly, but really the board can take action any time of the year, so you don't have to wait for one of those. All right, before you can communicate to your team, you need to make sure you know who's on it. I think you've received this link already, but I just wanted to point out the Directory of Leadership. This is where you'd go to find the current up-to-date contact information for who is on your committee. It is tied directly to ALA's membership database. So when a member goes in and updates their contact information, and we call it IMIS, it connects right to this webpage. Has to refresh, might take 24 hours, but you get the idea. So the specific contact information here is going to be visible only to members once you log in, and this is to protect your privacy. But again, they're linked dynamically, updated all the time. So please tell your group members to be sure to keep their ALA membership ID up to date. So right now, if you haven't already, now is a great time to review your roster, reach out to your colleagues, introduce yourself, get the ball rolling on the new year. And as John said, you're going to be invited in the not too distant future, once we have a date settled, for the virtual Leadership Council and membership meeting. And this year, it will be a chance to continue the work that we've done in Leadership Council around working towards racial equity. So now I'm going to pass things off to my colleague, Mary Jane Petrowski.
Thank you, Kara, and welcome everyone. I'm Mary Jane Petrowski, and I will be serving in the coming year as the staff liaison to some of you with us today, including the membership committee, the section membership committee, the student learning and information literacy committee, the information literacy standards and guidelines committee, the research planning and review committee, as well as the editorial boards for our annual trends and statistics survey and the academic library space survey. So during this brief segment, I'm going to go over some important deadlines, talk a bit about budgets, and some professional development opportunities for you. So don't take notes. We will be giving you abundant notice of all of these upcoming dates and deadlines via the committee chair discussion list, to which you have all been subscribed if you're incoming leaders. If you are coming onto a committee as a new chair or vice chair, you might have tried to access your ALA Connect community. You were able to get into that as of July 1st. Your access to these ALA Connect communities is linked to your appointment term. So what we do is to extend your access every year by a few weeks into July so that you can wrap up your committee work. Allison's going to talk to you a bit more shortly about work plan deadlines. But I just want to remind everybody, since we're all doing so many virtual meetings, that ALA does have an open meeting policy which applies to virtual meetings as well. So if you're planning to hold a virtual meeting, don't forget to give us 10 days notice to members in ALA Connect, and then to post the agenda and minutes after your meeting and send them along to your staff liaison. Minutes sounds like a formal term, but what we really need are meeting highlights and summaries so that you have a record of the key actions, the decisions that were made, as well as next steps in terms of who's going to do what by when. So we're asking the outgoing chairs of your committees to submit their meeting highlights by July 15th. They're also working on annual reports that will be due toward, I think, the end of July. And we'll be reminding you about these reports next year when it's your turn to submit them. But what we do with this information is we compile it for the board, and it allows the board to really assess our collective progress on the ACRL Plan for Excellence, and it will be required reading for them in preparation for their fall meeting. Committee funds and reimbursement is pretty simple. Each division level committee receives a funding allocation of $150 to reimburse people for expenses incurred in connection with your committee work. The unused funds do not carry over to the next fiscal year. So our fiscal year ends August 31st, so we're asking committees to submit all reimbursement requests by August 15th. And as the committee chair, we ask that you approve any reimbursement requests coming from your committee members before sending them to your staff liaison. So switching from funding to fundraising, I know some of you know that the board last year approved a fundraising goal of $60,000 for the 2021 ACRL conference scholarships, and we have raised more than 55% of our goal. Lori Getch, our campaign chair, will probably be reaching out to all of the incoming committee chairs to encourage your participation in the 2021 campaign. So if your committee wishes to raise funds for a name scholarship, let me know. We're happy to track your progress. And if you can raise $740, it can be, you can have a scholarship in the name of your committee or task force or editorial board. And on behalf of our 14 award committees, I'm flagging the first Friday in December for you as the big awards deadline. All of these award committees would really appreciate your nominations because as leaders in the association, you really are uniquely positioned to identify colleagues deserving of recognition. So I hope you put this on your to-do list and really encourage all your committee members to participate. So we offer several different types of online learning, and I want to review these for you briefly because there are some opportunities for your committees to think about. First off, we have what we call our e-learning offerings. These are focused on, as the slide says, practical topics and issues. These might be webcasts, they might be multi-week courses. These proposals are reviewed and approved by ACRL staff, but we do put out a call for proposals. So if you've got an idea, please contact our manager of professional development, Margot Conahan, with any ideas. So we encourage proposals and we handle scheduling and logistics for these events. Now, from a committee perspective, I think you'll be interested to know that we also welcome content for online discussion forums, and these are less formal sessions. They're free, and it helps ensure that your online education is visible to a broader audience. So there's just a simple form you complete providing information about the forum. We use Zoom to host these virtual forums. The committee would handle the logistics and the content, and then ACRL staff will work to publicize it. We archive all discussion forums. We actually promote these heavily to our new members as a resource and make them available on the website. So again, if you're interested, you can submit a reading request in the virtual meeting LibCal. And finally, in case you're not aware, we do have what we call sponsored ACRL Choice webinars, and these are free presentations on hot topics. These are also archived and accessible. And now I'm turning the program over to my colleague, Allison Payne, who is the ACRL Program Manager for Strategic Initiatives. I'm sorry, I'm turning it over to Kara.
Hi, Allison can't be with us today, so I'm going to go ahead and take her slides for right now. I wanted to make sure you know a little bit about how ACRL appointments are made and what your role is in that process. So as ACRL President John Cawthorn previously mentioned, we've done some work to make the appointment cycle more transparent. In general, the appointments are made by the Vice President. So your appointment was made by President John Cawthorn. The coming appointments will be made by Vice President Julie Garrison in concert with the ACRL Appointments Committee in late 2020 or early 21. Please note, committees do not make their own appointments, but you do have an opportunity to make recommendations. And so you should expect to hear from the Appointments Committee later in the year in December 2020 or later to ask your opinion on who you would recommend be considered for appointment. Also, the official call for volunteers will go out at that point. So if you have someone who's been coming to your meeting as a guest and you think, gosh, they'd be a great committee member, please encourage them to actually fill out that volunteer form. That gets their name into the database and that makes sure that they're officially on the roster of people who can be considered for appointment. We'd encourage you to always be on the lookout for opportunities to involve more people and go beyond the people you already know or the usual suspects. The more people there, the more diverse the committee appointments can be, and the appointments committee can make sure to have strong matches for committee appointments. That volunteer form is going to be available only to people who are current members because all appointees must be ACRL members throughout the duration of the committee appointment. Every committee has assigned a board liaison who serves as your first point of contact for questions and advice based on the board members' knowledge of ACRL's mission, policies, procedures, and board liaisons are assigned by the incoming president each year. Those are just wrapping up right now. The appointments deadline, we've purposely pushed the appointments deadline back this year because of the pandemic. We wanted people to have a little more time to decide if they were going to accept an appointment or not. And so consequently, the board liaisons have been pushed back just a little bit as well, but you should take a look at your roster in the week or two ahead, and I expect that those will be firmed up soon. And I just want to make sure you know who is really on the governance team. That's me, Kara, Allison in the middle, and Lois on the right, and the three of us really work closely with the ACRL presidents, with the board of directors, and we each have some liaison responsibilities to different groups, but we're kind of the people who work most closely with the board. There's several different communication channels that we use to communicate with you and as well as to gather feedback on important association business. So we encourage you to use these as well to post questions, share ideas, etc. You've heard about Leadership Council and Leadership Reception, which is kind of a social networking opportunity, whether those are in person or virtual. We really encourage you as chairs to attend or send a representative so that you have the opportunity to hear from the board and so that you can give the board input. We also have email and blogs. We have ACRL Insider, which is where we sort of publish official announcements about things that are happening at ACRL. And sometimes we publish things from you all written by committees about the work that you're doing in your initiatives, programs, and services. ACRL Update is an e-newsletter that happens every 2 weeks. It's another good way to keep informed about what's happening at ACRL, what professional development opportunities are out there, new publications, and so forth. And then we have a couple of different discussion groups, as we've mentioned. ACRL Leads is a discussion list for all current and past ACRL leaders who are automatically subscribed. These are kind of general association-wide updates and reports. We also have a discussion list just for you guys, just for chairs and vice chairs of committees. And you are automatically subscribed too. It's a resource where you can talk to each other. You can ask each other questions. You can share ideas. And help learn from each other how you've managed committees, help to reinvent the wheel there. And we will send you information there from time to time about your administrative responsibilities or duties, reminders, deadlines, timelines, those kinds of things. Also, we have social media presence, so check out all those vehicles as well. And we'll get into a little bit more detail about virtual meetings, but we have to, I want to say that we have over 300 different groups in ACRL, and there's such a demand for groups to meet virtually right now that we really encourage you, if you have an alternative option through your college or university for a committee meeting, for a business meeting, an hour or less, we'd encourage you to please feel free to go right ahead. If you have software available to you, schedule it on your own. There's no need to go through us. You're not required to. If you're having a larger meeting, a big public forum, a discussion, large discussion, we're happy to host those kinds of things. And if you don't have meeting software available, we're happy to host your smaller business meetings as well. You can find out more in the virtual calendar. And I also want to mention that ALA Connect is available as a platform for you to be able to do your work. Committees can participate in online discussion boards. You can share documents. You can post things there that can be public for the world to see, your minutes, your agendas, those kinds of things for posterity. And so we really encourage you to put those things there, your agendas, your minutes, annual work plans, reports, those kinds of things. It's there from year to year to year, so you don't have to worry about, oh, who had a Google Drive and who had the Dropbox link. We encourage you to use ALA Connect as your repository. We also have available to you Live Guides. It's a free service to any of our membership units. So we have Live Guides, Live Cal, Live Answers. Shouldn't really replace ALA Connect, but could be a great place to publish a toolkit on a particular topic, a bibliography and FAQs, something like that. And in terms of reporting, we do ask committees to report on what you've been doing over the last year. We give you a little template, try to make it easy, and what future projects you have on tap. And this is just a way to make sure that we're keeping track of what you're doing and that it can be shared more broadly, right? So people don't have to keep asking you via email over and over again. And it's there for posterity's sake and to help your board member be able to track what's going on and where they can step in, where they can help. So we tie that into the Plan for Excellence, strategic goal areas, and we also have a section for enabling programs and services, things more like editorial boards or appointments committee or leadership recruitment. In terms of advancing the Plan for Excellence, we do have a timeline for the annual work plan. Again, don't have to take detailed notes. We'll be sending this out more, but as leaders, you should really be in communication with your board and staff liaisons. If you have questions throughout the process, your board liaison will be the one who really takes a look at what you're proposing to do in your work plan and signs off on it and approves it and says, yeah, that seems like a reasonable amount of work. That seems like the kind of work this committee could be doing. They'll give you feedback if they feel like you're biting off way too much, or maybe suggest other resources that could help you get your work done more efficiently. You should also be sending your work plans into Allison. Again, she'll prompt you, she'll send an email so that she can more easily collect them all and share them with the board of directors so that the board has a sense of what all of its committees are doing. And then once your work plan is in and has been approved, go ahead, get working, start doing your work from August 2020 to June 2021. I'm going to try and pass things off to my colleague Lois, but I know she's also had some construction going on in her building today, so there might be some loud noises in the background, and I may just have to try, jump back in, but let's see if she's able to take the mic.
Okay, I am going to try this, and hopefully you all cannot hear all of this construction that is going on in my building and around me. I am Eloy Sharp. I first want to apologize for all the little glitches that we had. Sometimes they happen, and we just have to keep moving forward. I'm going to talk to you about the meetings process and face-to-face meetings at ALA conference. There are many ways to serve the professional development needs of members, including articles, standards, web resources, and pre-conferences. And we encourage you to take some time to reevaluate your professional development needs and consider an annual conference program for next year. The ACRL Professional Development Committee oversees the annual conference program process for ACRL. Although the process, it is competitive, I must tell you. And not every program idea can be accepted, but it's still worth putting your idea out there. Currently, ALA provides about 20 program slots to ACRL at each annual conference. And ACRL division level committees have the ability, and their individual members can submit their proposals for AC programs. Proposals will be evaluated in the same way using the same selection criteria. So consider making the investment and submit your proposal. Don't be scared. 2021 program proposals are due late August of 2020, and notifications will be issued in October of 2020. And the 2022, I know that's a lot of 20s to remember. 2022 proposals will be due in August of 2021. You may want to utilize ALA Connect to start discussing your 2021 program topics and possibly collaboration with other ACRL units or individuals through a threaded discussion post. And if you have any additional questions, I'm going to recommend that you review Chapter 9 of the Guide to Policies and Procedures on ACRL website, or you can contact ACRL Senior Program Officer Megan Griffin. Now let's talk about virtual meetings, like the one we're in now. Sometimes you're going to have technical issues, and sometimes things will work out okay. No, let me go back a minute. Yes, see, this is why technical issues happen and you have to keep moving anyway. All right. I'm not going to stop the recording. We're just going to keep going, and let me try to pop back up my screen right quick for you all. Yes, I am. I'm going to pause the recording.
You can type into the chat box, but several of us are going to have to leave in 3 minutes for our next meeting, so we'll stick around for 2 more minutes. And if you don't have a question now, know that your staff liaisons are very, very available, as are your board liaisons. We're happy to work with you. We want you to be productive and to do whatever we can do to help you and your committees get your work done this year. All right, well, thanks everyone. It looks like folks are leaving, so I think we'll say thank you, and thank you for bearing with us with these technical glitches. As I put in chat, if anyone knows Lois Sharp, you know she is a pro. So if she was having trouble today, it means something really serious was happening, people. So thank you for your patience.